two, one, boom, boom, bam, bam. What's going on, people? We're in the building, Wales only. Brendan, he's not my CEO. Just so you guys know, he has this whole shit on. It's making me look bad. I'm getting emails, man. They're like, we thought you have no boss. How come? Brendan, I got you saying he's your boss. So I just had to update my name and say that I have no boss just to kind of put you on the spot here, bro.
This is totally fake news, but we're gonna have this conversation with the board afterwards. So let's
There
not
is no
hash
board. I'm
this
the
hash
board,
out the
man. Everyone
details in
knows
front
that
of the
shit.
public. So why don't we talk about what's important? We have Wales only here with us, man. Thanks for taking the time.
No problem, man. My pleasure. Hope you guys are doing all right.
We're
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
great,
we're doing
man.
good,
How are
man.
you doing, man? Is everything good on your end? You're good. You're watching the charts. You're watching the market. You know, there's a lot of excitement happening now with the Hex community, especially with PulseX and PulseChain, everything coming up. You know, what are your thoughts? Maybe you can give us a quick, market update, what you've been thinking about recently, and we can just update the people.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure you guys have been hearing a lot about inflation lately.
Right.
Over here, stateside, that's a big topic. I personally been talking about it for about a year. So what's happening now is that is actually like people are starting to see it in ways that they never thought possible here in the U.S.
Right.
So they're starting to realize that well, some people are starting to realize, not all, that the fiat game is basically coming to an end,
Hmm.
and that leaves very few doors open, right? Because the usual happenstance is all right. Let's just get into precious metals, but we all know that that game is rigged as well nowadays, and the only game that isn't rigged is crypto, as far as we
Hmm.
know, outside of Bitcoin and ETH, because we can see what they do with those markets when they
Hmm.
want to pump tether or whatever have you, circle and whatnot. So we know where to go now, right? At least those of us that are in the know. There is still a lot of people out there that don't even know crypto exists. So it's
That's
going to
true.
be a weird falling out for the markets this time around, because some people are going to come out better on the other side, and some are not.
100%.
So
And you're saying we see Brendan also pulled out. What is this, man? 40% of the U.S. dollars in existence were printed in the last 12 months.
yeah,
Yeah,
Holy.
so that money's gonna find a home somewhere, right? And so,
yep,
man, look, there's so many interesting ways in which we could deliberate the consequences of this. Um, but man, like, don't you think that this, we could talk about maybe a little bit of a market update. We can talk about what's going on with Hex. We can talk about what's going on with PulseX, PulseChain. But don't you think this is likely to have an effect on how crypto will move moving forward? Where we've typically moved in these 4-year cycles, but we've never experienced a market cycle where we have this much inflation being printed. I mean, do you think we're going to really feel the effects of this cycle?
yeah. And the reason I think so is because people have a hard time wrapping their head around how inflation works, because the inflation they see reported is never the actual inflation that they come into contact with. So the inflation we as consumers come into contact with is the monetary debasement side of inflation, right? Now that applies to the inflation we come into contact with when we go outside and we buy goods and services. When it comes to um, even interacting with something like renting an apartment, right? You would think you wouldn't have to be caught in the consequence of inflation, but guess what? When you have the Fed printing dollars or whatever central bank printing, whatever fiat currency, and that currency goes into real estate market through the institutions, well, you just got taxed by inflation right there,
Mhm.
right? So inflation is everywhere. It's just about how you decide to see it, but it's always been there. As long as I've been alive, I know inflation has existed. Now, what we've been seeing since 2010 is called stagflation, which is when you see prices of goods and services go up, but the wages of people basically stays flat or goes down.
Right.
But now we're entering a stage where even people, they're demanding more money for their, hourly wage now. So now we're starting to see real inflation to the point where it's now hitting the business and the labor market, right? So that's something we haven't seen in since the 70s. And that's why it's more pronounced now that there's inflation going on than ever before. But it's important to realize uh, dollars don't have anywhere to go anymore because all the dollars that exist are overseas for the most part already. And then
Hmm.
you have this headline on the screen right now, which is just only adding to the conundrum that already exists. It's merely a symptom, right? It's not like the 40% was made because it had to be made. It's because they had no other choice.
Yeah, it's like a byproduct of how
Right.
the currency. So this is I have a question for you in terms of that as well. Even just looking throughout like history, right? Money and the economy flourishes sometimes, based fully on innovation, how much is going on with consumerism. If there's markets that are constantly evolving and innovating in general, right?
Hmm.
And with crypto being most likely, in my opinion, probably the biggest innovational movement or a financial movement in the current market we have right now. How do you think all this inflation is going to affect crypto? Are people going to use it to hedge against some sort of a market drop in the traditional market? Is it gonna, now since we have a lot of institutional adoption by these major institutions adopted crypto and it is on their balance sheets, is now
Hmm.
crypto going to mimic this traditional market in terms of if there's a drop or if there's fear in the market, is that going to translate to crypto, or is it
Yeah.
going to act the opposite way?
Yeah, it's something I've been contemplating, and the interesting thing is the following: what happens if you have the dollar ramp up, right? But with that dollar ramping up, you have um, the U.S. markets, right? The equity markets ramp up as well,
Right.
a la Venezuela, right? Like, what happens if those markets get so debased based on what's happening in the currency markets that they just shoot up,
Hmm.
right? And then what happens if, in conjunction with that, right, we start to see those price fluctuations on goods and services that you thought you couldn't see? Like, these are all things that could honestly happen in our lifetime because of all the money printing that has occurred
Hmm.
during our lifetime, right? So, long story short, this is just again really the end result of decades of nobody caring what's going on, and
Right.
now we're gonna have to tolerate and deal with the ramifications of that, unfortunately.
And we
So,
have to find ways that maybe crypto is it is it's crypto for us to smart in a smart way hedge against that, man. I
well,
think
let's
at
think
this.
about it. What
Yeah,
can they do to stop you from putting your money in crypto? Crypto seems to me to be the only outlet.
they tried, but
They can
They
try, man.
try, but the only thing they can literally do is psyops you, right? Like,
it's
that's
true.
literally all they can do. They can't physically stop you. They can't even make it illegal for you to act. Like, what are they gonna do? Tell you it's illegal to access the internet?
They had to shut down the whole internet.
They can make it hard to onboard and off though. That's one thing me and Mess were talking about before the live stream as well, which is where we live in Canada,
Hmm.
and a lot of crypto exchanges have been shutting down services to Canada. So while of course we agree, you can't make crypto legal, you can't shut down the internet.
Yeah,
Well, they can make it hard. They
they
can
can
make
make
it
it
hard.
hard. Yeah,
Yeah,
they can make it hard, and they do try.
yeah.
For example, I live in New York, and it's illegal for me to participate, but here I am.
Yeah, I wonder if the yeah the I'm pretty sure the rules in New York I think are some of the most stringent in the world, specifically when it comes to
Yeah,
crypto. Am I not
they
am I
are
right about that? Yeah,
correct.
yeah. The rules about
Even
yeah.
to operate a business in New York, in the state of New York, you need to have what they call the bit license,
So you're saying crypto business, or just
just to be able to touch and receive crypto in a business sense, just any
Mhm.
business type capacity.
Right?
Yeah.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. Yeah, well, look, man, I can I don't know if we should go down this rabbit hole, but I did want to of course talk to you about what's going on with HEX, what's going on with PulseChain, what's going on with
Hmm. Hmm.
PulseX, but I also kind of wanted to maybe get some of your thoughts on what you think the state of Bitcoin is. Cuz like I hear this going on with with Richard. I've even heard some of this from you, where it seems like there's I'm hearing from a lot of HEX people that you believe this a bear market's incoming, that the bull cycle's over. Could you elaborate on that a bit? Is that, am I framing you correctly there? Do
Yeah, I
you think
mean,
that the likelihood is
I actually called the top for Bitcoin. I don't know when, probably like a week before it happened.
Mm-hmm.
And that was what, April something.
19th.
Yeah, April something. Let me look at the chart. Hold on.
It's
April
doomsday,
15th?
man. It's
I gotta
doomsday. I
check.
will never forget forget that day.
No.
Yeah, hold on. Let's see here.
It's like when
Yeah.
China. So, and what did you use for that? Was it basically
Oh,
fully
here we
based
go.
on technicals or
Yeah, this is based on April 14th.
14th?
So all that happened is that Bitcoin came back and made a second high,
Mm-hmm.
right? And all that did was just lock in the weakness and momentum.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go out to a weekly chart, you'll see what I mean. It's an interesting way to look at charts.
Yeah, I got a lot of lines here.
Bro, thank you.
Feel free to share your screen, by the way.
All right. Give me a second because I just got I'm doing a little something over here.
No, no worries, no worries.
Guys, while we're setting up, man, we see all the comments. We see everybody in the comments. Thank you guys for joining. If you have any questions you got, we'll make sure we actually bring it up on the screen here. Man, I didn't know that streamers, you can actually bring up comments on the screen, huh? Did you know that?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, I
yeah.
don't even know how to do
It's
that.
actually fun. So let's say Boof on the Beat said, a very controversial word. He said, Brendan got more lines than a cokehead. Oh, wow. Yeah. I actually didn't mean to. I wanted to put this one here. Boof,
Hey man,
come on, man.
I'm just an artist. Okay, I appreciate lines. Okay, lines sometimes mean stuff, and lines are fun. So I mean,
Oh, man. But anyways,
Ridiculous,
guys,
man.
any questions you guys got? Any questions you got for Wales? Let us know, and we appreciate you guys joining. So make sure you enjoy the video, then the live stream, and stay tuned for all the gold, knowledge we're gonna drop on y'all. Anyways, go ahead, man.
Pretty much. Damn. Hold on, guys.
yeah, it's all good if you don't have it pulled up on my end here. But like, just to piggyback on like what you were saying, like here on my end as well, we were seeing like several drives of daily bearish divergence where we're having macro higher highs and price action with lower highs in RSI. There's always signs, man. Particularly with Bitcoin, I found that the daily RSI is extremely helpful for calling local tops, bottoms, and reversals.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
what I usually use MACD with the RSI, or I stack or RSIs, either or. But RSI is definitely my go-to because it's just easier to read. And
Right.
really, what you want to look for is just those divergences, right? And what
Yeah.
they are is,
Yeah.
once the RSI makes a high, you want to look for another location as to where it makes another high. And then not only is the price making another high, but what's happening is that the RSI is making a lower high, a
Right.
weaker high. So it's showing you the lack of momentum, or the waning strength and momentum, meaning that
Exhaustion.
it's exhausting yourself, right?
100%. 100%.
So that's how I look. That's what I look for personally. And that's what helps me
So
see.
you're saying we're in some sort of up and coming bear market, basically.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really done anything since April, bro. Like, I mean, it's been 8 months of going nowhere. I don't understand what, like, that's,
That's
like,
true.
Bitcoin and Ethereum have done nothing for 8 months. So, I mean, I
Right.
don't know what you call that, but that's not a bull market. It's not a
Definitely.
bear market, I guess, either. But it's
That's true.
Jesus, what's going on? Give me a second.
No,
He's a
no worries.
busy
All
man.
good.
He's a busy
Yeah.
man. But maybe, man, we'll pull up the hex chart as well. What do you think? Maybe we'll start talking about hex here for a bit. Unless Brendan, you got something to say about the chart here. You look like you got
No,
some
that's fine.
stuff
I'm
to
more
say.
than happy to talk about HEX. I think HEX is honestly, man, like, we talk about Bitcoin, we talk about Ethereum just because, I don't know, they affect the majority of the market. But in terms of opportunity in this space, there's a reason why we're talking to whales here, because I think there's clearly opportunity in this ecosystem, the Richard R ecosystem. So personally, this is what I'm most interested in. So more than happy to fucking give her a go here. I don't know about you, man, but um, I'm feeling much more optimistic with the price action with Hex here because
Sorry,
look,
guys.
no, all good, man. I was just saying that I'm personally starting to feel much more optimistic with the price action with Hex because while we always have the fundamentals there, it's always nice when you can get that extra bit of confirmation with the price action. And on my end here, the fact that we got a higher high above the kind of mid-November relief rally is just that extra bit of on-chart confirmation that we're seeing a little bit of strength in the market, which is always just a good bit of confirmation to see.
Definitely. No, 100%, man. And maybe if I can also share my screen here
Yeah,
just
go ahead,
a
go
little
ahead.
bit, just talking about Hex specifically. I think the chart, man, looks pretty simple in my opinion, man. You know how much we love, having the EMA ribbons to kind of gauge where the market is sitting, to know where the buy zones are, where the support zones are, where we're supposed to kind of sell if you're trying to sell, but at least have some sort of, pivotal moments on a weekly chart with the EMAs to try to see, all right, so because this EMA ribbon kind of acts like a magnet. As soon as we kind of make some sort of a distance here, at the end of it, it's always going to pull us back in. That's, a buy zone for a lot of people. And we see a very nice reaction to it, man. Right exactly at those EMAs. Last week was the week before this. I mean, I don't know, man, but this is probably the most dominant, I would say, weekly candle I've ever seen in my life, man. There's no wicks whatsoever. Bodies just straight going to the top, and there's no signs of selling whatsoever. We're seeing a bit of, a bit of a struggle now because we're going to these higher regions from before, but that's normal. But maybe we can talk about the daily, man. I think the daily's pretty telling a lot here.
You're gonna get called out for not using a log chart there, eh?
Pretty
I don't
much.
give a shit, bro. It's log chart or whatever, man. Same shit. It's
So, man,
price on a chart.
yeah. So what are you thinking at this point? How are you feeling about Hex? Anything interesting on your end that's changed?
Well, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you, man.
Um, so here's the thing, right? You guys got to understand when you're looking at markets, you can't look at you can't look at it from a day-to-day perspective. You got to really give yourself a month-to-month scope of view because markets are going to gyrate, right? Or fluctuate. And when they fluctuate, it doesn't mean it's going to be your day every day or your month every month. Um, and the thing about when you have something like Hex is that it completely flips that dynamic, right? Because there's always a reason to buy it. Always. Because what else pays you? Nothing. Nothing else pays you. So it flips the dynamic a little bit from that perspective. And that's something that people just have a hard time wrapping their head around because they think it's like, they really spend their time trying to analyze it like it's some other market. It's like, think about it. Would you sit there and analyze the cost of starting up a business or would you just pay what it costs? You just
Right.
pay what it costs.
So you're saying it's more kind of like it's more of like a multivariate analysis. We can't just look at a chart anymore, knowing that the mechanism driving this token is
Correct.
completely different than what you've seen before, basically.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Correct. So when you take all of that into account, right, you can say, all right, well, here's this thing that actually is going to provide me a benefit by holding it. Because we have to remember, there is nothing else out there that does that,
Mm,
right?
right.
And talking about what's with the value with Hexer to kind of tie into maybe what's going on in the macro picture right now with things like PulseChain and PulseX. So I've been getting this question asked a lot, and I kind of want to get your sense on how you feel about this. A lot of people are asking how much of one's Hex position does it make sense to sacrifice for PulseX? Of course, it's a highly personal question. There's no perfect answer here, but I think it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts. Like, would it make sense 5% of your hex position, 1%, 20%? What are your feelings on this question?
Well, I mean, it's a weird question because you do what you can afford.
Right.
And what that means is if you understand that this is like, so this is the way I look at it. How much would you put into Bitcoin before Bitcoin got made if you knew what Bitcoin was going to be?
Exactly what you can afford.
Exactly. I mean, you put in everything you can, literally.
Right.
Because when you're getting in at the ground floor of something, so that means you're getting all the zeros. So how much is too little or too much? I mean, I don't think there's ever too much, but there can always be too little.
Mm.
All right, because How much was too little when you could have gotten in at zero with Ethereum?
That's
A
true.
lot, right? Was a little bit. Any bit was a little bit. Now that it's 4,000 a coin, right?
And you know what?
True.
Like this might be obvious, but I think it might be helpful to kind of talk about why. So, do you think that there's a reason to think that PulseX short term is probably has a solid chance of maybe outperforming Hex? Because if not, what would be the point in sacrificing if there isn't a case for short term outperformance? Am I correct in thinking that?
Well, it depends, right? Because I don't actually think Hex can actually be outperformed because you have to take into account that. I'm sorry, guys, but this shit is crazy over here.
It's
You
all
have to
good, bro.
take
What's
It's
going
all
on?
good, man. It's all good. Don't even worry about
It's all good,
it.
man.
um um. So what was I
So
gonna say?
Hex not being outperformed.
Hex can't be outperformed.
Right.
Yeah.
So here's the thing: Hex is very hard to outperform, right? And the reason for that is because it's literally designed to pay you every single day. Like it's not designed to do anything but be expensive, and people have a hard time wrapping their head around that.
So you're thinking even in terms of, because that's the question. I guess we're a lot of people are, we see that all over Twitter. We'll see that all over, our YouTube comments and everything. People obviously do ask those kind of questions, and I guess the biggest thing, the biggest outlook is usually short term, right? That's how
Yeah.
people. If you're looking I guess if you're looking for long term about something, you can just stay on the sidelines. And I'm just in it for the next 5-10 years, man. I really don't care what's happening tomorrow. I don't care what's happening right now for this day. But I guess the question that a lot of people are asking in terms of the short term outlook on the sacrifice, is this something that you give a lot of weight to? Is there something beyond the sacrifice that's coming in? Because just like how Brendan asked, in terms of just strictly returns, a lot of people are excited. They want to come in at a sacrifice phase that looks like just getting an early off the ground kind of pricing, a premium
Hmm.
before you get to the gets to the market. But also, to you as well, I think a lot of people should probably also be thinking like, hey, even for that sacrifice, you're probably going to need those tokens to actually be able to operate properly within the PulseChain ecosystem, for example, or maybe for gas fees, maybe for whatever the case might be. Just you holding those tokens at a bit of a premium pricing is actually going to put you at a better spot to function normally in that system. So I guess Brendan from question was, are the returns? How much do you put weight on the returns coming up from a sacrifice phase, for example?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess you gotta kind of take into consideration the fact that when you're putting in money into something with no expectations, then you should expect nothing, right?
That's
So
true.
that's first and foremost. And if something does come of it, it's good to understand that this is pre-launch that you got in, right? So in my mind, there should be some X's on that as soon as it goes live. Like that's in my mind what should happen.
Okay. Yeah.
So that is pretty straightforward, I think, there, because how else do you take into account um, the interest for some, the yield calculation for something, right? It has to be kind of based on what it does, right?
Right.
And Hex is literally just designed to just go up in price, and that's it.
Definitely.
Um, so when you take into account that versus Pulse Chain is a utility coin, right? Like literally, that's it. And then Pulse X, right? Like that's supposed to be the coin that incentivizes liquidity providers to dabble in that liquidity providing arena, right? Whatever that is. Now, each coin has a respective utility, but what are the reasons to own those coins? Well, I think the reasons to own those coins are because they're going to be the actual ecosystem that people can afford to use, right? They won't have to actually buy a whole pulse to actually transact in pulse or a whole anything to do anything. They'll just be able to do it, right? And
Mhm.
I think that that's going to be unique because you can't go anywhere else in crypto and just do stuff. It's going to cost you a lot.
Right.
So that's
Right.
not going to be the case here. So I think that alone kind of sets up the stage for mass adoption, right? I mean, that's could be kind of crazy not to think that this would be the opportunity for it not to happen. Because if it's not going to happen here, then it's never going to happen.
Right.
Just can't happen then, because it's not affordable elsewhere. Period. So
Now let me ask you. So I don't know if you've. I'm sure you have, but just in case, like with the recent news with the PulseX tokenomics about it being deflationary, 21% of every fee going to buy PulseX from the open market and then being burned. Does that change your view on how much you planned to sacrifice at all?
no, not really,
No.
because again, the way I think about it is like this: is like, well, let's assume let's assume you're not gonna get 10,000x every time,
Yeah.
right? Because every trade in crypto doesn't give you a 10,000x, right? Very few have.
Yeah.
So let's assume 2,000x. That's a fair assumption. Now, the way I'm looking at it
The
is like,
horror.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
right. And I mean, what other industry can you talk about things in X's like this? Very few.
Yeah.
Um, hold on.
And I love how this is a space where, I like a 2000X would almost be a disappointment.
Yeah,
You tell
yeah,
him like only 2000x. Is that
Only
what I'm getting out of this
2000X?
shit, man?
Well, come on, man. This is a scam. Only 2000.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the funny thing, right? And people still, don't understand crypto, don't want to take the time, don't want to understand
That's true.
what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where some people are going to get left behind, and that's okay.
Right.
It's not for everybody. Just like, I got left behind when I didn't understand what was happening in 2008, 2009. Right.
Right.
Same thing. This is going to be the same thing, except for that the people that understand this time are going to make way more money than the people that understood that,
That's
because
right.
I've already made more X's in this one trade, just X alone, than I have than anybody on Wall Street did with a Big Short, and that's a fact.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
Wes, I have a question for you, man. I feel
Yeah,
like you tell me if I'm right or wrong here, but what we're picking from you is that you're extremely cautious when you're talking about talking about the sacrifice phase, talking about pulse chain, pulse swap, pulse X. Sorry.
mm,
Overall, the energy I'm picking off of you is that you're mainly focused on hex. There's a specific focus to hex from Wales only. Is that true or not? Do you have is that your hex is on top of everything for you, and then everything after that is just like a derivative of what a hex system looks like,
well,
or how does it look like for you?
yeah, I think that's an interesting question, because it's kind of like that. It's kind of like that, but it's not, because what's exciting about the Pulse domain, Pulse Chain and PulseX, is that it's going to give us, those of us that care about crypto, the ability to actually recreate it, because it's kind of been taken from people, right? Like, if you think about it, Pulse Chain is replacing what Ethereum was supposed to eventually become and never could become,
Mhm.
because it just got, I guess, interfered with. I don't know. It's not ever going to become what it was supposed to be. And then here you have uh, a whole network, that's rising out of nowhere in the Pulse Chain ecosystem, that's going to allow us to, well, not just us, but just those of us that participate in crypto, to continue participating in it and not have to pay an arm and a leg or lose an arm and a leg to do so.
Right.
And this is going to allow not just those of us that know it exists to continue to use it, but it'll allow us to onboard people that are actually looking for financial freedom, right? Because that was the original intention of the space, and it's kind of diverted its attention away from that. And it might be the case that we can actually do it this time around, if with
Mhm.
the right people in place, and the right interest in mind. It could be that Pulse Chain and PulseX and HEX actually allow people to do it,
Right.
because you know the question is, well, why is HEX so damn strong? Like, why is the following so respected and all of that? Well, it's very simple. um there's nothing out there that provides a yield. B, there's nothing out there that's designed to do anything trustlessly like Hex is. So Hex has clearly become the standard for crypto. So if anything is not made to that liking, where it's trustless, meaning no admin keys, right? Where you have code that you can expect and code that's completed, right? Not Ethereum, not Bitcoin, where it's like maybe one day you'll have something, maybe. Uh,
Mhm.
but right in the case of PulseChain, it might not be like that, right? Because this is infrastructure, and infrastructure has to get maintained, right? So you have to understand where it makes sense and when it doesn't, right? So in that aspect of Ethereum, well, what is the problem with Ethereum? Because it clearly can't ever be finished, apparently.
Mhm.
So I guess the problem is in the design, right? They don't allow the blocks to reach X height, right? So that the miners can continue to do what they want to do. And that's fine, I guess, because all it did was motivate people to do what we always do, and that's just innovate and build elsewhere. Because I mean, what else are you supposed to do, right?
That's true. The space
Right.
is too dynamic, man, for any kind of whenever an obstacle. That's what I've been noticing in general. Like it's there's a lot of deconstruction happening, man. If the Ethereum is not paying, just we're not having lower gas fees, and if it's getting in the way of building dApps and all that, right away, couple months after you're having major,
Exactly.
other blockchains coming in and jumping in. It's a fast-paced environment. If you don't keep up, you won't keep up, kind of
Yep.
thing.
Yeah, man. And look, this is my thing. Just Will, so like maybe a little bit of where we're coming from, and I should maybe speak more for myself where I'm coming from too. Is
Do that.
look, on on our channel, we're an altcoin channel, but really that's because we're just trying to find opportunity, man. Me and Messi, we both
Exactly. Yeah, I get
got
it.
into crypto to find financial freedom, and so
That's but
we're
that's the
just
whole
trying to find.
point of crypto.
It's the whole
That's the whole
point, man.
point of crypto,
Yeah,
brother.
yeah,
That's
and
the whole point.
bro, and that's why we were talking to you right now. That's why we want to focus on this ecosystem because, man, in terms of all the options we have out there, from NFTs to weird DeFi to these Ethereum competitors, there is nothing, in my opinion, very little on the level of both quality, earliness, opportunity, so many ways of analyzing this than this PulseChain HEX PulseX ecosystem, man. It just seems to be where the vast majority of the opportunity is right now, man. And I think you're right. I think I think that's another reason why people are so interested in this PulseChain PulseX stuff, because we saw the track record of what HEX did. HEX did 2000x more or less, depending how you
Hmm.
measure it, right?
Hmm.
And so when you have that guy building an ETH competitor, and you have a track record there, that warrants your attention,
Right.
right? And is that also why, just to distill, why I think you focus on Hex, because Hex is the finished product, but PulseChain is more. Maybe it'll eventually need scaling. It's more of an open question. Is
Right.
that
It
where
has to
you?
be, I think. I think it
Yeah,
has to be.
yeah,
Right? Because look at Ethereum. Right? Ethereum, while we know that Richard Hart is doing his best to produce something that only requires little tampering after the fact. I mean, you have to think there has to be some room for upgrading on a blockchain.
yeah. Because if it's successful and all of a sudden half the world's using
Right.
this, you're gonna need
What then?
scalability. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
what then? I don't
Yeah, yeah,
know.
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
think he knows either. I mean, it's a hard question to answer.
yeah, yeah,
Um, so when you take that into account, and you look at what he's doing now with PulseX, I mean, what is he taking? Uni and Pancake and making it better or whatever? Like,
yeah, yeah,
it's crazy, man.
yeah.
So, he's doing things and bringing things to the fore that we typically don't like, right, on this side of things with the yield farming and all of that. But he's making it interesting at least, and he's giving people opportunity once again, right? Because when everything starts from the ground up, that gives everybody the equal opportunity to get in,
Yeah,
get square, and start from scratch, right?
Definitely.
And I think that that's what we're all looking for. Like when the opportunity to sack in the Pulse chain came up, well, what do you think I did? I didn't pay the rent again, and I threw it all in the Pulse chain. What else
Lock
is
my
there to do?
doors. No
Yeah,
landlord can come in.
nothing. Like, and it's time to sacrifice again. It's like this guy's never gonna let me pay my rent.
This is
So
like never gonna happen. So man, look, I wanted to ask you something as well. To me, I pay a lot of attention to branding as well, right? Knowing that now we have an umbrella of products. Let's just we know it's crypto, but the way I look at it, at the end of the day, it's a product that we're putting to the world. This product has a use case, and that use case has a price value to it. And that price value is determined by how the market reacts to that use case and if there's actually something it's solving or not. We know Hex is solving something. We know PulseChain is being, that's the goal of PulseChain, to also solve another thing in the crypto space. And PulseSwap is it's a product of PulseX. I keep saying PulseSwap. PulseX is going to be a product of PulseChain, needed another, mechanism in that system that needs it to operate. Now, the way I look at it is this. Maybe that's my question to you. Do you think PulseChain ecosystem is taken away from Hex or adding to it?
Oh, definitely adding to it. Right. And the reason for that is because now it's going to allow people to become more aware of it. So it's going to allow them to benefit from it.
Right.
Because, the funny thing is that people don't get about Hex is that you're never late to it. Like, you can't be late to something that pays you every day. How the hell is that possible?
Right.
Because what people don't understand is if you only have $500, that $500 right now is going to get you the same the $500 got you last year. When I got in with my $500, all it got me was $500 worth for that point in time. And then over time, that $500 grew. It wasn't just, it's $20,000 because I put $500 in, right?
Yeah.
It's not the way it works. Like, I
It
had
always
to
takes
wait,
time.
and people have to come in and they have to wait also, right? Like, it didn't kick off for me until, let's see, I got in end of October. So that this didn't even start ripping until May. So that's a whole 6, 7, 8 months before anything even happened. It just went up some. And it wasn't until after that point that we started seeing all these X's.
Yeah.
That's
It's
true.
a lot of accidents, bro. You said October 2020?
October 2020, yeah, the last week of October 2020.
Now you can comfortably
It's a
pay
nice
all that
valuation.
rent, man. Rent is not a
Exactly.
problem no more.
Exactly. But if I
That's
wouldn't
true.
have stopped paying that rent, I wouldn't be able to pay the rent comfortably.
That's true.
Now let me
20
ask
years
you.
over, right?
But now, okay, so when PulseChain goes live and there's twice the supply with Hex, does Hex go slower?
Oh no, it grows faster.
Really? With twice this, because you have 2 chains to choose. Why would it go faster?
Why not? Because now it's more accessible.
Well, it's double this. That's true, but it's
Right
also
back
double the
at you,
supply.
man.
But it's more accessible. That's
So
one of
you-
those funny things about technology that makes people not understand how it works. Like, I'm literally dealing with this and lawyers right now because they don't understand how addition works, oddly enough, when it comes to
Maybe,
words.
maybe Brendan. Maybe I guess that's what could be, adding to it, or because what you're basically saying is that gonna take a bit of the demand away from
You're
Hex.
thinking like it's dilution, and it's not. Because you just added free money to the pot. It's free money. Who doesn't
I'm
want
just
free
playing
money?
devil's advocate here. I'm just asking
Yeah, but
questions.
there's
No,
no devil's advocate with free money, my man. That's the whole point.
There's
but it's
no
a fun.
devil,
But it's a
bro.
fun
What
game
the
to
hell
play.
is wrong with you, man?
No,
I think, look,
I get it. I get it.
One thing though that I think would be like maybe like an answer to your question, Brendan, would be the fact that we have more use cases. It's gonna attract a new market.
Oh, I literally agree
Right,
with you.
so
I just wanted
Brendan,
to, yeah.
don't talk shit, man.
I literally agree with you. I just want the question.
100%, man. 100%. I think that's a question. That's a good question, man. I think a lot of people are also answering a bunch of. Well, what do we have here in the chats here? Let's see, man. Not a lie. See, Buffo on the beat has been killing it. Hex is the brand. If I had gotten into Hex as early as Wales, I'd be all about Hex too. So
Yeah.
I guess so.
Yeah,
We
no,
got
that's that. I don't agree with that.
no.
Yeah, nah.
Tell him.
Why don't you tell us, man? Tell us.
I already did because when I got in, right, of course you could get tons of Hex, but them tons of Hex weren't worth anything. They were worth what they were worth with what I had at the time.
That's true.
So you're saying it's all a
change.
time in the market thing.
Correct. There's always time in the market. There's always time in the market.
Yeah.
That's true.
And so,
Always.
look, man, I want to ask you something that maybe you don't want to answer, and if you don't, please, feel free not to.
Knock
But
yourself out.
okay, because look, me and Messon, we like to have debates. It's what we do for fun.
Yeah.
And so I want to ask you.
My debates is fights, man. We're talking about some like I'm hanging up
personal.
I'm done
Yeah,
with
we
this bullshit
always
kind
get
of shit.
personal.
Well, yeah. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah. No, but okay. So I've heard some rumblings about you, maybe some others, trying to form some kind of HEX investment fund. Is there anything you can elaborate on that with?
Nah, I can't, unfortunately. But
Okay.
something like that is in the works.
Even on a theoretical level, like how would a theoretical friend go about doing maybe what some people are maybe thinking about doing?
It's already been done. That's the thing. I don't know why people are so confused by it. It's
what
already been done. It's only
what's
going to
been
be done
done?
better.
What's been done?
We're just trying to dig in, man.
Tell us
That's
what's
all
been
we're
done. I
trying
want
to
to
do
ask the
here.
question.
It's already been done. Just going to be
Okay.
done better. That's all I can say.
Hey, man, you're being
And
too political, man.
well,
Too
no,
political.
you got to understand. This is a game we're trying to play here,
100%.
right?
100%.
And this
Okay.
game, well, understand this game is very, how can
Lucrative.
I say,
Lucrative.
very big league.
Yeah.
It's because people are gonna get it confused, right? Because people are gonna think that what matters is what's being done out here, not understanding that it's about what the ramifications are for what's inside of our world already. Because our world is what matters. All we have to do is connect the bridge, right?
That's
So
true.
that's all we're trying to do.
I want to get him to keep elaborating.
The question is, what's gonna happen once we connect those bridges? And that's where the having the right people at the front of the ship comes into place. Because the wrong people will do what Grayscale has done.
They've been Grayscale, man. I'll be honest with you, man. I love the way Grayscale approached this. I'll be very honest, man. I think if there's any way of doing this, it's the way they approached a lot of this.
I don't
Nah.
think you're picking up what he's laying down.
Yeah, nah.
Exactly. I'm just trying to say, oh, Grayscale is good, so we can ask more, man.
There's a reason why I'm CEO here.
100%.
Okay. So maybe just further, just like theorize here, just on a purely theoretical note. Do you buy any of this Robert Kiyosaki, that kind of person, getting more serious about this hex space?
Yeah, why not? I've been talking about it since those are the kind of people I've been talking about since I started talking about Hex, because who else cares? People that want to make money. That's it. Nobody else cares. And there's a lot of people that care about making money.
And look, man, in the spirit of asking difficult questions,
Mhm.
You're right about how Hex works and how the immutable yield and the benefits of the code in the system.
Mhm.
But I got to be very honest. There is a perception problem with Hex, and
Mhm.
to what degree that can be addressed is an open question. But I I think there is something to be said that some of the perception problem around Hex might hinder its adoption. Do you see some of that perception problem around Hex
Not
as
really.
any kind of problem?
Not really, because when I first found Hex, I found that same nonsensical information. And I was astute enough to realize it was BS information. So the people that succumb to that are just low quality minded folks anyway. So you can't help people like that anyway. So it's fine.
I see.
Yeah.
Another question I got, man. I guess in the spirit of PulseChain coming up, and that's, I guess, where all the excitement has been. Probably for the next couple of months, in my opinion, leading into the new year. I saw a tweet from you recently talking about PulseChain and certain people that don't understand the system, kind of getting wrecked eventually with how
Yeah.
PulseChain is approached. Can you elaborate on that? Like, what did you mean by that, and what kind of advice are you giving people, basically?
So think about this. Um, Imagine knowing you're about to get a free double and selling that. Yeah, exactly. This is what people have been doing for the past 3 months.
A free double for selling?
No, people are selling a free double.
I see. Okay.
Right.
Oh, so that's what you're referring to.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah. And there's how do you feel about the fork, the snapshot, whatever you want to call it? happening after the sacrifice phase for PulseX. And like the only thing that kind of like sucks in terms of, because a lot of people are going to give up a lot of their dry powder, including myself, for PulseX. Is that not kind of a,
Well, I mean, you don't gotta sacrifice if you don't want to. I mean,
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Boom, boom, bam, bam.
yeah.
yeah.
So not sure why it would suck. I want to be able to make X's. I don't want to just have dry powder. So if you just got money sitting there, that kind of defeats the purpose of the money.
That's true.
I just don't want to give up my hex, man. Before that doubling, before that snapshot, because I do plan on
Yeah, I feel
sacrificing
you.
my hex.
I wouldn't want to give up the hex either, but that's why I'm saying you got to make a decision. That's why it's called a sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
Like I had a lot of hex before sac phase, the first one. Now I don't have that much hex because I sacked
Yeah.
a lot of that shit.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's why we're asking some of these questions with PulseX and PulseChain, because me and Messa, we're both trying to figure out, how do we think about PulseX? How do we go about valuing this? Like for me, for example, I mentioned our Discord examples such as like QuickSwap did a 50x from all-time low to all-time high. PancakeSwap did well over 200x, like 230x ish from
Right.
all-time low to all-time high. Is that kind of the right way to be thinking about PulseX in your opinion? Like how are you evaluating this?
Well, that's an interesting thing. I'm looking at it as if it's a whole brand new scenario, right? And the reason for that is because you kind of don't want to think that what we're currently experiencing is reality, because there's no way that it is, right? Like Ethereum fees, Uniswap fees, like all these fees are just crazy, they're out of control, right? So a lot of business does not get done. So imagine how much more money is going to be made once business is affordable once again. Like it's you have a problem where you can't see all of the volume that's out there to be made because only so many people can actually transact.
So saying that the current data we have on all these different returns that all these different swaps had, which we know had a lot of I guess holes in the system, basically, a lot of inefficiencies, and now we're looking at a proposed newer solution that's a lot more efficient, that has a lot more what's it called? It's planning on solving a lot of the problems we currently have. You're saying that's kind of it's like you're not comparing apples to apples. Basically, you're looking at a completely new system, completely new thing that's poised to have returns that we're kind of not used to, basically.
Right, pretty much. Because what else is there? What are you gonna buy? A $4,000 coin? A $50,000 coin? A
Right.
new person isn't going to really opt for that. They're going to opt for the more affordable option because that's where they can see quantity in hand,
That's true.
right? Assuming that they're able to wrap their head around crypto in the first place, because just like that alone is a stretch,
Yeah.
And then that's the thing. Like, I think for people like us that we've been in this game for so long, it's important to remember that. Like, it's just not like there's people that just don't really wrap their head around the fact that crypto is real, and they miss out on opportunity, just like we missed out on 2010. Like, I know I did, right? I was old enough to say I missed out on that. So those are the kind of mistakes that they're easy to make,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another question, man.
Yeah. What's up?
What is what does Hex need to reach, I guess, because that's what the main goal we're trying to reach at one point as well, for everybody to know about what Hex is and all that. What's the next thing for Hex to actually reach some sort of, bigger adoption, or the adoption it deserves, basically, in your opinion?
Um.
Well, like more advertising,
Hmm.
more marketing. Do
Well,
we
you
need more
kind of
use
gotta
case? What do you
you,
think
you
is
kind of gotta understand how people come into this business, right? Into crypto itself. Give me one second. Let me just read this. Um, sorry guys.
No,
so?
all good. All good.
Just a moment of silence for everybody. Everybody take a deep
For the
breath.
haters, moment of silence
Take
for
a
the haters.
second to breathe in, breathe out. Then we're good.
um, so The thing that's gonna like make Hex pop off is the fact that people just don't know it exists. People just don't know it exists because they gatekeep the shit out of it, right? So once people can find out it exists, that's pretty much it. Because everybody knows everything else exists because they can see it.
That's true.
Right? And that's the funny thing because the average person comes into this game through these funky sites that don't even matter once they get into the game.
It's true. Doesn't matter the way you got in, as long as you're here, kind
Yeah,
of thing.
because
Yeah,
you don't use them anymore after that. I mean, you might refer to them once in a blue.
that's true.
So, you know, it's a
And,
weird thing.
and I just thought about this, man, and you let me know what you think here. But Richard Hart's obviously a super smart guy. I personally don't agree with everything he says, but I think he's obviously tremendously smart and a massively positive influence in this space, in my opinion.
Sure.
But one of the things he likes to hit on, and something he's trying to coin, which is Hart's law, which is basically, for those who don't know, is that there is a correlation between prices when you have liquidity pairs. So if you have Bitcoin and Ethereum paired together, or Ethereum and Chainlink paired together on Uniswap, if one goes down, there's an effect on the other pair. So given that the PulseChain ecosystem is likely to have PulseChain, PulseX, and HEX likely mostly paired with each other. If that means Hex goes on to do thousands of X, PulseChain goes on to do thousands of X, do you think there's something to the fact that there's paired liquidity that can maybe also drag along something like PulseX? Do you think there's anything to that idea?
Yeah, I think it's possible just because they're all related to a certain extent because you're gonna have potentially the same kind of flows in and out of those same types of assets because they're made by the same person and has kind of the same community base and stuff like that. So that's a fair assumption. But it'd be interesting to see if that's actually the case.
Yeah.
So you're saying it's not like, oh, it's because Bitcoin and Ethereum are different, so you can kind of compare. If one of them does good, then probably the other one's gonna do bad. But with this one, it's kind of under the same umbrella. Then there's something to having that correlation, like going all. If this goes up, then the whole system is kind of going up with it, as opposed to other ways around.
Right. Because when you think about what the Hart law says is when you got two pools of assets, right, that they're tied together, if one moves in one direction and is stronger than the other, then the other is going to follow by default.
Right.
That's it, right? So if we're going to say that on PulseChain, PulseChain is the dominating factor, or PulseX is for in terms of flows because of how things flow on those networks, and Hex is tied to them, then Hex is going to go up based on them going up,
Right.
right? Because that's how the flows are moving on PulseChain or PulseX, whatever you want to call it.
That's true.
So that's all that is saying.
That's true. I
As
guess,
well.
man. Yeah, go ahead, Brendan.
Yeah,
Go ahead, buddy.
I got
Go
another
ahead,
question,
man.
which is we recently interviewed the guys from Liquid Loans. I don't know how much you know about Liquid Loans, but
I'm not familiar with it.
oh, you're not familiar. Okay,
I am.
Oh,
I'm
you
familiar
are,
with
you
it. I'm just waiting for
Okay.
them to finish.
Okay, right. So I want to ask your thoughts. Like, what are your views on the project? Would you consider participation in a sacrifice phase with Liquid Loans if they had one? What are your thoughts about Liquid Loans?
Well, it's a great concept. We need to know if it works. Like that's all I want to know. I want to know if it works.
Mhm.
I know on paper it works, but like everything else, no, I don't care about that. Everything looks good on paper.
I think it has a very good chance of where like there's similar products and in the space outside of Hex so far that kind of work within that fashion. Not so much decentralized. So that's something to keep in mind. There's a couple decentralized systems, but it would be nice definitely to have that on the PulseChain network, man. I think it's gonna add so much to the way you want to approach this whole investment and flipping the whatever you have holding so far right now, and gonna give you a bit of more like freedom. But you're right, man. We got him on the channel, and it was hard to kind of find holes in that approach and how beneficial it could be. So
Oh yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
if it, you know, if they, for example, could one day amend their code to take like liquid hex, that would be great, right? Because you
yeah,
clearly can't beat hex staked, right? Like that's clearly never going to happen. So liquid hex, we know how liquid hex trades. Like that's something that would be easy to be like, oh, here's an 80% dip. Take some of my hex. I
yeah.
need a loan, right?
That's
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
So that's one idea, right? And then it's just there's a lot of different ways we could play that game. We just need to know if it actually works or not.
That's true.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. They said they would be coming out with audits around the time of launch. So that's something else I was looking forward to. So
Mhm.
yeah, we'll see. It definitely sounds interesting to me.
Oh yeah, I mean, I
100%.
hope it works, right? Because who the hell wants to sell anything?
Oh yeah, man. That's the
Yeah.
biggest thing about it. You hold something, you don't want to
Yeah.
sell it. You can just put it and just get a loan out of it. That's obviously that is like currently is like a thing in the traditional markets. With certain banks and all that. Would be if you have a house, you can put it up and then get some money out of it instead of selling it and then repay. So that's something like it's already there in the traditional market. But to have that in crypto and have it credible, I think is extremely important. So it's definitely something that if they achieve it, then it would be good, man. 100%.
Yeah, for sure. So I hope they can. So because we would all benefit from that. That's a no-brainer, right?
That's true.
I mean,
That's
Yeah.
it'd
true.
be completely
Yeah.
dumb for you not to want them to achieve the goal, but it needs to be
100%.
done right. We know what the standard is, and that's all we can ask for is for the project to achieve the standard. That's all.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, man. Well, yo, like, do you have any kind of final thoughts here on Hex, man? We're running up against an hour here. Maybe we can start to wrap up in a little bit. I guess you got any more questions on your end, but you got any final thoughts here, bro?
Well, I think people got to understand what hex is because hex is a little unique. Um, and taking that into account, you know, really do your due diligence. Don't treat it like some other coin because it's just not. It's really nothing like any other coin.
It's true.
So that's like the most important thing I say about hex. As far as PulseChain and PulseX, the fundamentals are ridiculous. So if you didn't get the sacrifice, make sure that you take advantage of the first dip because there's always one, right? You got to expect one here. And be sure you're ready to sacrifice for PulseX. I mean, because it's gonna be crazy.
It's true.
He's still saying before the end of the year. I hope
Mhm.
we'll see, but
4 days or whatever. Hey man, I got the most. I think. Look, we talked about Hex. We talked about PulseX. We talked about PulseChain. We talked about traditional market. All these questions, sure, man. But I think there's one very important question that we forgot, man. When are we gonna see your face, bro? When are we gonna make a reveal?
Maybe one day, man.
You showed us a half-ass, like you showed us just a bit of your eyes. Like so, we saw the video, man.
Saw that
Just a
video.
bit. I think that's it, bro. You gotta show your face at
Oh
one point. I
man.
know there's a lot of benefit to not, but we'd be more than happy, of course, man.
Yeah,
But then
maybe one day, man. We'll
maybe
see.
one day, man. Maybe one
We'll
day.
see. We'll see. Got too much work to do in the meanwhile.
Oh, of course,
there
100%,
you
man. But no,
Yes,
we
sir.
appreciate you coming up, man.
Oh, my
Thank you
pleasure,
for
man. It's
coming up.
always fun talking with you guys,
Always
man.
fun, hundred
go, dude.
percent.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time. If you ever have any updates on whatever's
Whatever you got.
happening, whatever's going on, we're more than happy to
As soon as
talk
I
about.
can, I will definitely provide updates. Don't you worry,
Hundred
because it's going
percent.
to be beneficial for everybody. I'm
Hundred
I'm
percent.
working on pumping everybody's bags. I don't know what everybody else is working on, but that's what I'm doing.
Yeah,
100%, man.
yeah,
And
So
look, man, I think we need you for one. I think it was very interesting what we talked about with inflation and all that. I think we
mm,
need the next live stream. I think we need just a full live stream just talking about that, man.
sure.
I think that's a nice zoomed out picture on what's happening in the current state of the market. And crypto's not just it's not just a new thing. There's a lot of ideas and products coming from the traditional market to crypto that
All
a
right.
lot of people in crypto are thinking like, oh, this is not gonna do well. It's different. They're trying to find holes in it, but it's already in the traditional market. That's what you're used to. I think it's good to have that man here in this live stream. So hopefully, man, sometime soon we'll have the full live stream just talking about the traditional market. I think you got a
Yeah,
lot
for
of
sure,
content to
man.
talk about.
And if I could just have one more thing as well, like folks, like and subscribe, hit that bell icon to be notified of new uploads. We'll leave a link down to Whale's channel down in the description as well. But I just want to say, man, thank you for your time. These conversations, even though we all talk about these subjects often, they can be very, very helpful for new people, man. It was through listening to people like you, among many other people, that got me interested in crypto, got me interested in Hex, and guided me on the path to
It's
hopefully
not
one day
easy.
financial freedom. So
It's not easy finding it, right?
yeah, it's really
It's not.
not. So these
It's not.
conversations are highly valuable. And yeah, man, thanks for coming on. Thanks for the time. And I think
Appreciate you,
we'll
man.
Hey, my
wrap it up.
pleasure, man. Hey, look, I used to be just like a nobody that knew nothing. So it takes everybody time and diligence to get to where I'm at.
Definitely.
So everybody has to get from A to get to Z. You know what I'm saying? So nobody should ever feel discouraged about not knowing, because
100%.
there's a ton of shit I don't know. It's not
True.
possible to know everything. You just got to be good at what you're good at, and that's what I encourage people to do. Because
100%.
everybody's good at what they're good at. Everybody ain't good at what I'm good at. I'm not good at what you guys are good at. So
I mean, Brendan's not good at anything, man. So it's all good.
You don't get to CEO without having a few tricks up your sleeve, man.
Bro, ain't no CEO up in this motherfucker.
Hey man, you keep talking
Yo,
shit.
man.
Eventually, it's gonna come out of the next board
Bro,
meeting. And,
you'll get
there's
fired.
only so much
tomorrow
I
if you
can
keep
do, man.
talking
There's
like
only
that,
so I
bro.
can look
You'll
after
get-
you to a
I'll
certain
get
degree,
your
but
ass fired
at a certain
tomorrow
point,
if you
things
keep
are out of my
talking,
hands,
bro.
and
Couple emails. That's all.
you guys are a trip.
Wales, thank you so much for being here, man. We appreciate you, guys. Thank you guys for watching. We're good to go.
like and subscribe, drink water, be hydrated, don't be like messing. Until next time.
100%, man. Appreciate it. Look at this skin, bro. I'm glowing, bro. I don't know what you're talking about. Peace out, boys.